So let's start off with emotional self-control. The ability to be able to recognize your own emotions and to determine when and how to demonstrate them appropriately. Is this hard for any of you? It's very hard for me. This is my worst. So ask my husband, he will tell you, yes, I do have a few faults. I know it's really hard to believe, but one of my faults is that I'm a little bit of an aggressive driver. And in fact, if you ask my husband or anybody else who frequents I-25 near Denver, they would want me to take the little bit part out of it. Let it just be said that even when I'm not in a hurry, I drive like a bat out of hell. But there's one thing that gets my knickers in a knot quicker than anything else, and that is drivers that drive slowly in the fast lane. I mean, people, there's a whole nother lane right there. It's called the slow lane. Anyway, I have a strategy. I have it all figured out. I go right up behind the car until pretty much my car is filling up the whole rear view mirror. And sometimes they look a little oblivious, so then I sort of, do a little wobble like this behind them. Hey, I'm here, guys. And if they still don't move over, I will flash my lights. And if they still won't move over, I just wait until there's a break in the traffic, and I drop it down a gear, and I fly by in the slow lane. And you know what? I just give them a nasty look on the way by. You offender, you. My story begins 40 years ago in South Africa. I was a student at the University of Cape Town, and a couple of friends and I decided that wouldn't it be a fine idea if we just drove to Johannesburg for the weekend? Johannesburg is a 13-hour drive, so of course it would need to be a long weekend. And the only thing standing between me and my ability to go was my professor and this test that he had scheduled on Friday. So I did what every self-respecting student, would do. I lied. I told him that my uncle had died. Poor fellow, poor chap, he'd been gone for 7 years, but that's the best I had on short notice. Monday morning comes, and we're driving down. It's before daybreak, and we're on our way back down to Cape Town, and I was asleep on the back seat of the car. And I was suddenly jolted awake as the car skidded off onto the gravel, followed immediately by this floating sensation as this car just took off a 30-foot embankment. And you may think that my last thought was, oh, crikey, I might die. But sadly, no, it was, bloody hell, I'm going to miss my test. Anyway, they determined that indeed I had a fracture right here between C6 and C7. So they decided that they had to immediately stabilize my fracture. And the way that they do that is to attach a headgear to your head on top with a pulley and a 15-pound weight. Now, they've got to obviously drill little holes right here. And what they used to drill those holes was a hand drill. You may remember one in your... I will never forget that sound of that vibration, that zzz sound. I had a doctor whose name was Vilma Pistorius. No relation to Oscar. I survived. But Vilma... But there are a couple of strategies that have helped me. The one is the 5-second pause. This is where you wait just a little bit before responding. Now, it's not going to take away your anger or frustration, trust me, I know, but it will dial it down just a notch, just enough for you to be able to think before something flies out of your mouth that you may regret later. The other one is to do absolutely nothing at all. So let's say your husband, or usually it's the husband, sorry guys, is not doing his fair share of the dishes, right? And you're steaming, standing at the sink. Stay there, steam, it's okay. Try and communicate later with him when you both are in a good spot. After 4.5 months, when I was allowed up, I would go to physical therapy. And first it was in a wheelchair, and after a while it was with my walker. And I remember one day walking back from physical therapy, and it was a long walk. And let it just be said that I had had a catheter in for 4.5 months. I did not have the bladder that was the strongest in Cape Town, I'm just saying. So I didn't quite make it. But I was met by the staff nurse right in the door. And this woman would make Nurse Ratched look like Mother Teresa. And she looked me up and down, and she said, "You are such a baby." She said, "You need a diaper." I was so ashamed. I will never forget that. Of course, years later, I'm a lot smarter now. I wish I'd said to her, "Well, that depends." When you're trying to develop empathy, know that you're probably going to be judging some situations. And when that happens, cut yourself some slack. Give yourself some empathy. We've all got a lifetime of judgments that we need to let go of. And once you're open and receptive, work on really focusing in on this person that you're with. Work on focusing in on their facial expressions and what they're saying, the message that they have, their body language. And try all the while not to become too entangled. You're going to need that perspective of distance in order to help the other person. In 1876, there was a man by the name of Joseph Newton. He was the holder of 6 degrees and honorary doctorates. He was a minister and a prolific author, 30 books. And Joseph Newton once said, "We cannot tell what may happen to us in this strange medley of life, but we can decide what happens in us, how we take it, what we do with it, and that is what really counts in the end." Thank you.